Hello, welcome to another exciting episode of Conspire a Theory. I have with me the abominable, the adorable Natasha from Cryptids, Creeps, and Conspiracies. How are you doing?
I'm good. I need some classy music like you have in the beginning. It's making me want to dance.
Yeah, that's fun. The I've been on your show several times. We've had several conversations, but this is the first time I've officially let you in on my end of things, and it's great to finally have you in and to let you in and sort of get to know you for a little bit because
Yeah,
we
look
have a
out. I'll be
lot of
coming in like a Kool-Aid man.
yeah, we have a lot of mutuals, and we've seen each
hmm
other on other friends' shows. But it's very rarely that ever you and me get to really sit and talk to each other. So this is a good time for us to sit, have a mild conversation, get to know each other, just get to know you a little bit because I know I know a lot from your show from being on it, but I really haven't had a chance to sit down and talk to you like person to person to just get to know you as another spooky chick in this sort of paraverse.
Oh, yes. Oh, I like that
Yes.
Paraverse. I'm going to have to use that at some point.
So go ahead and let what led to you starting your show, and what is it that you're all about that you bring to it that's unique to you?
So I have a wide variety of things. My whole life, I have experienced things paranormal. I mean, everything from full apparitions to the voices to I started doing paranormal investigations maybe 2 or 3 years back is actually when I actually started looking for them instead of them looking for me. Which, let me tell you, a totally different atmosphere when you're not the hunted and you're the hunter, which is great. But I've just had so many weird things happen to me over the years, and I've always been interested in the strange and the odd and the unusual. And I had a job where I could turn my headphones on, but I was not allowed to get my phone out. I couldn't change channels. I couldn't skip. It was just, I had what I had for 8 hours a day. Well, 10 hours at one point. And I started listening to podcasts. And I give these guys a shout out all the time because they are a huge inspiration to me. I found the Kryptonaut podcast with Chris, Mark, and Rob, and I absolutely adore these guys. And I listened to them for over a year and just listening to what they talked about and things that I was interested in. And they just seem so cool, right? And it was just like sitting at a table with friends, even though you were the invisible friend, you weren't really there, but you felt cool anyway. And I was like, you know what? I think it'd be fun. I think if these guys can do it, I bet I could do it. I'm gonna give it a shot. And I literally just one day was like, all right, here's a mic, here's this, and I did research on how to make things go. And I just kind of went from there. It was just kind of like, oh, well, if other people are sharing these things, that's awesome because I don't feel so alone. And I want to advocate for people that have issues. So it's nice to explain to people, it's like, hey, when you hear somebody on the show and you have something similar or the same or whatever, you're like, hey, wait a second. It's not just me. I'm not, because a lot of people that experience what I've experienced, if you don't at some point think that you're going crazy, then maybe you should probably get evaluated at that point because at some point you're going, this is weird. And so I just kind of started digging in, doing the cryptids. Cryptids are my favorite. However, I do not go squatching or anything, but I have the most experiences with the paranormal, psychic phenomena, that kind of thing. So I have those as far as personal encounters, which I do like to hear from other people and hear their experiences. And it's a very good platform for that. But then I get to have a little fun with the cryptids and doing funny things. And I make these little guys that are, if you're watching the video, you can see them kind of behind me. I got some aliens. I got a little Nessie up here. I've got a whole box over here full of ghosts and Fresno night crawlers that I make. And it's just something that growing up where I grew up, it was not okay to be weird. If you were weird, it was like the worst possible thing. I'm from a small town, very conservative Midwest, and I always felt so out of place. And once I started kind of listening and going to events and that kind of stuff, I met other people like me and you. And it was just such a great community that I just, jumped full force in. And like I tell people, instead of me being a black sheep by myself, I am now in a flock of black sheep, and it is fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess what first when I first reached out to you, it's because we had a common experience in the, I guess, disembodied voice syndrome, where you had one and it was sounded like a child that you had
Hmm.
mistaken for one of your children. And in my case, it was when I was a teenager, I had heard a voice that I had taken for my mother. And we sort of had that commonality. And then I guess I came back and we did like another, more in depth, I guess, in depth dig into the sleep paralysis phenomenon, an episode that should be coming out pretty soon by the time that this one comes out. The From all the stuff that you've dealt with all the commonalities and the stuff that, I mean, what is it that you often, I guess, what have you seen so far? What do you think now that you've stepped into it and you've sort of gotten it, all the gunk is in between your toes now? What do you
Ugh,
think now versus when you first started?
that is a horrifying analogy. That just literally made me cringe. Oh, thanks to my toes are so gross. Anyway, I mean, now granted, like I said, so before I ever started the podcast stuff, I mean, I was already multiple full apparitions. My very first, things were kind of weird. I remember being little and picking up on weird things, knowing, don't go in there, something bad's in there, knowing things were going to happen before they happen. And I just chalked it up to I was really in tune with something. I was really good at judging people's character. Maybe I could pick up on social cues that other people couldn't. I didn't think much of it. And my first encounter with anything thoroughly horrifying was when I was 15. I was face to face with the only thing that I can explain it as was this thing. And I know everybody kind of poshes everything, but to me, I'm like, what I would describe a demon. With all the things that I see and feel and hear, I know when something at least one point was human. There is that soul, that humanity, I guess, that you can still pick up on even when somebody passes. But this thing I'm in the driver's seat of a car. This thing is in the passenger seat of the car, and we are staring each other down. I mean, I'm having a face off with this thing. And that was my first encounter. Was, oh great, there's something horrifyingly negative right here in my face. And then it just kind of, I had some apparitions that happened in the same house. And then when I was, excuse me, when I was 18, I had a whole bad experience and I actually had to have emergency surgery and I flatlined on the operating table.
Mm,
And let me tell you, when you already have some sensitivity and that happens, to hell with cracking the door. I mean, it blew the door off the hinges.
mm,
And then it was seeing so many different things, hearing so many different things. Like I can picture things. I mean, I've had stuff in every house that I've lived in, which creeps people out, even work. Um, lights will go off and on. Tables will move. Things will fly off the counters. I've had a treadmill in my own house turn itself on when, I wasn't here at the time. I mean, it's brewed coffee out of the Keurig machine.
mm,
Um, just it's all kinds of things. And I've had everything from knowing people were going to die, anywhere between 24 to 48 ish hours is the average. I have a dream, I'm them, I know they die, and then within 48 hours they're dying the exact same way that I knew, which is creepy. I've known, now I'm on baby 12, whoop, baby 12, that I have known before the parents knew, one, they were pregnant, what the gender was, everything. So I've had kind of stuff like that going on. I get things all the time. I in my studio here, usually I don't have them on right now, but usually, I come out here all the time and turn my sensors on and just do spirit box sessions. Things are constantly talking, and my cat balls are going off, and my K2 meter's going off, and all of this stuff is happening. And to me, it's normal. So I sometimes forget that other people aren't aware of that. So when things happen when I'm with other people, they kind of laugh because they're freaking out. And I'm just like, oh, it's just so and so. It's fine. Oh, it's just a ghost. It's okay. And they're freaking out. But we've just had a lot of things like that. And now the one thing though is that I was fascinated with your white trash folks is, to the best of my knowledge, I have never had sleep paralysis. To the best of my knowledge. I may have, I'm still on the fence. For somebody who experiences so much stuff, I am very skeptical. I may or may not have been abducted by aliens. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that because everything inside my head is telling me it was just a dream. It was just a dream. It was just a dream. But I'm talking when I woke up from that dream, I had physical issues that correlated with what had happened. And it really freaks me out because I am still very, very, very much so not sure how to feel about that particular one. But it was very real, like creepy. But yeah, so I've had a little bit of everything.
Yeah. With the aliens, they don't tend to discriminate though, but it's like you would think that these guys would practice professional courtesy, like lawyers and sharks. But it's a sort of we got this one already, so stay away from it.
Well,
I
think about
think
it
I
too. If a farmer has cattle, how does he treat his cattle? They're just cattle. They are assets and they have a purpose. But that's it.
I suppose so. Going back to the podcast that you came up on, like the Kryptonaut podcast, I've seen that one is like very, women love that show, and I kind of get it because it's, when I heard the show, I have it on my, I'm subscribed to it as well. And when I hear it, what I hear is what Last Podcast on the Left was when it started. That's what I
Yeah, I've
hear.
never heard it. I've never heard
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah,
I've heard
it's
a lot
sort of
about
like
it, but
a,
I've never listened.
yeah, it's not what it once was, but when it first started out, the first year or so, that's pretty much what Kryptonaut podcast is. It's sort of that same formula, but it
Yeah.
works, and everything is very well researched, and when you hear it, it's like, oh, this guy's, he's the Mark, and this guy, he's the Ben
Yeah.
Kissel, and then there are these various archetype roles that they tend to fill. But it's a very well put together podcast. It's as far as deep dives into all these issues that we run into. It, I highly recommend it for, if you really want to sink your teeth into a topic. They do a
Tell him I
great
sent
job
you.
with that.
I actually had
Yeah.
Mark on my show and totally was trying so hard not to fangirl out and squeal like a little pig because I was so excited to have him on. Now granted, for those of you who do go listen, let me tell you, these guys look nothing like how they sound. And you really have to think about it when you watch them because you're like, wait, what? But I like it because they focus more so on, kind of like me. I try not to cover anything super popular or that's been done 100,000 times because I feel like without any new evidence or anything like that, I don't want to just keep beating a dead horse. And what I like about them is that they do the cryptids that are less common and abductions and stuff like that you might not have typically heard. But you're like, wait a minute, that's so freaking cool. And those are the ones that I try to cover on mine too, because I want to do things, one, that are just really weird. And that a lot of people, they're not going to be like, oh, it's just another Loch Ness monster thing. Like, here we go again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like it when they go off the beaten path. It's very fun. There's a lot of one-off creatures that are very unique that we hear about, that's sort of like ingrained into the culture. I mean, stuff like the hodag, the vegetable man, the
Yeah, I love the
Sandalphon,
Veggie Man.
all these offshoots of something else.
Yeah.
And
I
then
mean,
there's
that's
like
just,
I think
sorry, go
there's
ahead.
what is it, the Flatwoods monster, and then I
Yep.
think it's the Framewoods monster, where
Well,
it's
they have
like
the Flatwoods monster. I
and then
haven't
there's
covered it yet.
another one. There's like a second one that's
Yeah.
like the town over, that was pretty much the same thing, except it had a different top.
Yeah.
And it was that's a lot of that's interesting and a lot of fun. From going back to our deep dive on sleep paralysis and that stuff, it's I really didn't know what to expect because I know that there's like a lot of hard research that can brush away a lot of
Mhm.
the encounters and speculation that people have on this issue. And I think is that what some people are taking a more spiritual approach to it, like I think Vicky Joy Anderson and the like, and having a more sinking Heidi Hollis
Yeah.
and sort of sinking their teeth into it from another perspective. That these entities aren't just manifestations of our subconscious, but they're sort of these sort of representations of nefarious forces and stuff. What Just to reiterate those, what is your impression?
So now, I don't know, I like to, which is one thing. If you guys go listen to the show, I try very hard to not only try to stay open minded with everything that I come up with. I also, I mean, whether I agree with it or not, I like to play the devil's advocate, right? I might full heartedly believe believe what my guest is telling me and agree with them completely. But I'm still going to throw out this like totally controversial thing that's just going to shoot them down just because I'm like, look at it from all angles. It
Mhm.
could be anything. Um, I know that mental health plays a large role in things. I mean, I suffer from it, and I've actually more than once went to my doctor and been like, "Hey, can you screen me for this because I think I'm losing my mind?" And I have been multiple times checked out by my doctor, which by the way, just to clear it all up, I for like 6 times in a row have not been schizophrenic. Just so everybody is aware of the fact that whenever I hear and see things, it's not schizophrenia. Um, but the sleep paralysis thing, I feel like I'm kind of on a fence. So, on one hand, if it's something that is exactly the same across the board for multiple people, I have a hard time believing that it is something outside of the person's mind. Because I feel like, I mean, even if all the listeners out there, if I say, think of an apple, I guarantee you, not everybody is going to think of the same apple. Some are going to be green, some are going to be yellow, some are going to be red, some might have caramel, some might have, it's all kinds of stuff. So for something to be exactly the same across the board, I struggle. But on one hand, I struggle, but on the other hand, I'm going. However, if these entities are what is penetrating your mind and attacking you or whatever you want to call it in your sleep, if they are aware that the only way that you can understand what's happening to you to basically instill the most crap your pants factor, it's going to be okay. I know that this person has heard about the old hag, right? They know about it. So if I show up like the old hag, they're going to know exactly what I'm here for, and it's going to scare the pants off of them. So I kind of feel like it's a little bit of both. But there is a lot of, I struggle with things that are only in your sleep. Partially because even though I have not had sleep paralysis, I have very lucid dreams. I have woke up in the middle of the night, I mean, kicking, screaming bloody murder and waking myself up along with the entire household because it's like blood curdling scream in the middle of the night. Occasionally, I seem like I am chanting in a guttural voice, some kind of foreign language, which is fun. I guess maybe I'm cursing somebody in my sleep, but I feel like one, if somebody's experiencing this, it very well could be. I mean, to be honest, it could be a sleep cycle thing, right? If you're continuously experiencing it, I like to look at it as get checked, get a sleep study done, right? Because if it could be something simple. Maybe you're just not getting good enough sleep. You got apnea, you've got this, you've got that. But if you can do that and basically be like, okay, I don't have sleep apnea. This keeps happening to me though. and there's no medical reason for it, I full-heartedly believe that it could be something, I don't know, spiritual, or and I feel hard pressed to call it spiritual because it might not be, I guess, spiritual unless you're a spiritual or religious person. And I feel like whatever these entities are that are doing this to people, they play on that, right? Because I mean, if you're, I'm just gonna pick on Catholics, I guess. Sorry, Catholics. If you're Catholic and I come at you like, hey, I am Satan or a demon or whatever, and I'm here to do all these horrible things, that's going to have a very different effect as a Hindu person, right? I mean, what if it's something, I don't know anything about religion. I'm so sorry, people. Um, but if it's something that, or like, say it's somebody who's just absolutely petrified of Barney, right? I mean, you might show up as one thing and it's not going to scare one person, but you show up as something else and you're going to scare the pants off. So I feel like they play on that, but even if it is an entity outside of somebody's mind doing this, I feel like they would have the ability to kind of mold whatever they were doing to get the most effect out of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Like sort of like from Doctor Who, imploring a perception filter, or in the abduction lore, they refer to it as screen memories and stuff like that. So I definitely see where you're coming from, and there is a sort of this odd precedence about that we sort of put that in to, I guess, cover our ass, so to speak, when it comes to discussing these issues. I've heard of issues like even with the mental health where some encounter or some experiencers will be prescribed medication for psychiatric
Mm-hmm.
issues, and then they'll stop taking the medication because then the aliens stop visiting them, so they stop feeling special. And I guess in some of these instances we run into that. It's sort of like, on one hand, predatory, of people, taking advantage of people's, either, I don't want to call it naivety, but their,
Ignorance,
well,
moldability.
it's more of their, like their suggestibility. Yeah.
Yes.
Along those lines, their suggestibility, because they want so much to believe. And then at the same time, we have people like ourselves who we're, we sort of, we're sort of our own worst enemy, in that some people from this, they want to feel special, or there's a very clear cash incentive to have the most outlandish
Mm-hmm.
story to be adapted into the next Warren's film franchise. You know
Now,
what I'm saying?
I will tell you, as somebody who suffers mental health and also hears and sees and is very sensitive, when it is not mental health related, that medicine will not stop them. I've been on it for years and they're still here. It takes care of everything else that it's supposed to take care of, but those have never gone away, ever. I mean, if anything, I've been like, oh, it's going to go away. And then I end up with like a 10 times more obvious, because it's like trying to prove a point like, hey, it's not that. Like, I am here to stay and you're going to like it.
Hmm.
Last time I made
Yeah,
a
I
joke,
can.
something literally threw something at me. So I've got to be careful.
Yeah, I can see what you mean. I can definitely see that. Um, Now you don't quite do as much field work. Is that right? The
So I really want to, but I am a soon to be single parent working 3 jobs trying to keep my bills paid. So
Hmm.
feel free to donate to the podcast, because that's usually where my money goes, is to investigations and conventions. I would love to get out and do more. It's just having the ability to do so is hard. However, on another perk, everywhere I go is haunted because I'm there. So I can literally set up my balls. I went to a hotel room at a convention and I stayed at a hotel 20 minutes outside of the town that the convention was in. Kid you not, went into the hotel room as soon as I get in there, and I don't know if you guys do this, but I do this. And I was on the phone and I was doing a video and I was like, oh, look at my room. Look, I have like a jacuzzi tub, and doing all of that. And I turn the camera and I'm like 6 feet away from this door and the door just starts closing. And I'm like, and I waited and it closed all the way and just closed itself. And I was like, okay. So then I was like going around and then the lights started flickering off and on. So I was like, all right, game on. I mean, I set up the cat ball sensors and set up the spirit box and those things were going off. I was like, oh, cool beans. All right. And I know that it wasn't anything there because one, it was 20 minutes away from the convention. So it's not like anybody could have like rigged it. Two, I brought my own stuff and set it up when I got there. So there's nothing that could have been bothering it.
Yeah.
So yeah, everywhere I go is a haunted place, which makes it a little easier to investigate things. Although, unless you look at it from a standpoint of if I want to look for specific spirits in a specific place, but mine come with me, I think it sometimes can muddy the waters, I guess. So something might happen and it might be mine that I brought with me because they just kind of follow me everywhere and not something that has been reportedly seen there. I just realized that could be a problem. I just now realized that.
Yeah, I know it's just in this field there is this sort of like I guess this sort of like dude bro mentality of whether you do field work or not,
Mhm.
and I guess that sort of lends into the issue of self-aggrandizing credibility. Whereas if you're not boots on the ground, then your opinion means less.
I mean,
And
on one hand, I would agree somewhat, depending on how you were covering your stuff. Now, if I went and I was like hopping up all this, activity, this activity, if I was like Zach Baggins in that shit, that's one thing. But when I go, like I tell people, so I covered Ashmore Estates because I investigated there. I had like one thing happen like the whole time. Like I'm going to tell you if and what I like to do also is it's not like I just go and I, spin forever and then chop it all up and make it seem like it's all this activity. It's when I cover the place, it is here is the history of the location, the land, the building. Here's what happened there. Here's what other people have reported. But here is what I experienced, whether it was something or not. I mean, if it was a dud, I'm going to tell you it's a dud. Just because I want to either myself have been there, preferably, or find someone else who has been there to bring their encounters in.
yeah, and I guess that's why with most of these shows, it's like I'm okay with people like doing a recreation, like oh, this
Ooh,
is we're retelling the story and that. But then when so many people try to do the live investigation stuff, and it's obviously that they're trying really really hard to make stuff happen. I don't
yep.
know. It's like I don't know. I'd rather just I feel like there's this sort of like there's like two approaches to the paranormal. Either you talk about what happened and take a look at that, or this instigating, the sort of legend tripping type of
Yeah.
approach to it, where you try to instigate
Hmm.
experiences, you try to instigate sightings and stuff of that nature. That's I guess we got that with the ghost hunting
Yep.
and the
Which is why
Bigfoot
I don't watch
crowd.
I
Yeah.
watch zero paranormal shows on TV. Can't do it.
Yeah, you have like the ghost hunting crowd with their live streams, and then you have the Bigfoot crowd with their
Yep.
squatching, and then you have
Yep.
the UFO crowd with their sky watches. So
Which is
everybody's got
cool.
everybody's got a way of trying to
Yeah.
instigate stuff, and when you're
And
going out
and,
there with that intent, I don't
and
know,
I'm with you too.
it's
And one thing I try to tell people is one, when you watch these TV shows, assuming that any of the crap you're watching is real, to get an hour worth of activity, you have to virtually be recording nonstop for like a week to get just that much. It doesn't happen the way people make it seem like on TV. So then people get discouraged. And one thing I tell people too is keep in mind, these spirits were people. You don't just die and then become the same as you or me or whatever. I mean, they still have in their different time frames and different preferences. And So one thing that you do at one place might not work somewhere else. Say, RIM pod might work at one location, but not at another. A cat ball might work one and not the other. So each one's different. So when you investigate, try to use a variety of methods because not only that, but they're not active all the time. I mean, they're not circus monkeys, guys.
Mm.
I mean, they're not just going to come out and do a little ditty for you because you ask them to. Well, sometimes they do, but a lot of times they don't if you just ask them to. And sometimes they just don't like people. They might not like certain people. I have literally been next to someone holding a spirit box, trying to get something. Silence. I mean, just dead silent. She literally handed me the spirit box and things were just flying. They didn't want to talk to her. They wanted to talk to me, apparently. And to the point where they were describing me physically and not her. And they wanted her to leave so they could talk to me, which is really kind of creepy, don't be left alone, preferably. Uh, but I just like telling people, use a variety of methods and don't be discouraged. And like I said, just because you visit one place one time does not mean that you can just totally kibosh. So say you go somewhere, it's like me, Ashmore Estates. I go one time, one kind of sort of thing happened is not enough for me to be like, oh, it's all a hoax, blah, blah. Because it was one time. You never know. So yeah. Sorry, I'll get off my. Sorry for the Tosh talk.
No, it's just what is. It's just what is. And another thing that I notice is how like spookiness is like seasonal with some businesses.
Yeah,
How a lot of them will do the. It's like I understand that there's a drive to preserve historical places, but there's not a lot of money in it. So of course, every single historical place ends up being, quote unquote, haunted.
Haunted place. Yes,
And
only
then,
only from September to November, and then it's normal, right?
yeah, because I'll see this in
Which
the.
okay, now again, you got to look at all sides here. However, with that time frame around All Hallows Eve, in theory, being a time frame where the veil does get thinner and it makes things easier for spirits, in theory, to communicate. It wouldn't make that much of a difference, but I think it could make a little difference. Maybe you do get more activity around Halloween because of the environment. Maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll try to give them a little bit of the doubt.
And it also just happens conveniently when they happen to up the rates for the haunted rooms.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like it's this sort of thing where during the regular season the hotels will not talk about whether they're haunted or not, and then when it's the proper season, then every room is haunted and there's a story, and everybody, provided they pay the premium rates, can come in and investigate.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know. I don't know
If
what to make
anybody's
of
just
that.
listening,
Yeah.
I am doing air quotes.
Yeah. So the as far as this whole, trying to this push for paranormal on demand, because I guess it's sort of the culture. It's just the way that it is. We do this sort of on demand type of, we want everything here and now, and I guess that's
Yes.
because of TikTok and Instagram and all of that. I I don't know what to make of it, if this new generation is going to have like this sort of, because we seem to forget our history, and I guess that's why we're
Yes.
having UFO disclosure for like the third time in my lifetime. And I don't know, it's just UFO stuff has sort of like become the sort of uh I don't know, it's sort of become this hot
Like a
money
joke.
making topic. Yeah.
Well,
It
it went from a joke. It was a joke for so long that now when you have people that seem to legitimately be trying to get information out, no one is taking them seriously. Which was, I guess, kind of their goal the whole time.
hmm.
Congratulations, government. You succeeded.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there is this sort of movement now that is very, I guess it's very, I caution to use the word gate kept, but it's very front loaded, and and access.
Yes.
It's like access this, and everybody wants a piece of this. Like I keep harping on the Lou Elizondo about how he's a sort of like he's the new gatekeeper of UFO dumb and it being taken seriously, and everyone wants to stick up for him and have their picture taken with him and all of
Yeah.
that nature, and it's just so that way they can then cash in and go for the crumbs, you
And
know.
let me point this out too. I'm just gonna throw this one out there and just let it simmer. Okay. They have had how many decades to formulate some bullshit that they claim is the truth to allow us access to? I mean, come on. Even this legitimized stuff could easily just be total bullcrap, or either partial truth, not the whole truth, or their fabricated version of the truth, which isn't really the truth.
Yeah, and of course I see this performative performative outrage with in regards to the whistleblowers, where it says like, oh, they're whistleblowers, they're whisking so much. It's like, well, they've been cleared to talk.
Yeah, they're
There's
whistleblowers
stuff
that have been
to,
allowed. And
yeah.
if you noticed, these whistleblowers can only say certain things. They can't even just say whatever they want. They can only say certain things. So how exactly is that truth again?
Well, there are like implemented protections that to protect these guys, and also in prior hearings they've been cleared to talk about stuff that if they have evidence to come forward. But so far, every single one has come forward with, well, a guy told me a thing.
Mhm.
And the thing is, the problem with a guy told me a thing is that that guy, said the same thing 60 years ago. So
Yeah.
it's this sort of, it's passing the football down.
Mhm.
It's not really getting anywhere or doing anything. And a lot of criticism from the more skeptical side is that it's been however many days and these whistleblowers haven't said anything, but people say, but the caveat is like, well, they're risking so much by even being there. And it's like, but they've been greenlit
Yes.
to be up front. And there's this like where the UFO field and the advocates demand transparency of the government. But if you ask them about their sources, then they get all tight lipped and that transparency ends there. It's like
Mhm.
the transparency is a one way road. It
Bob
doesn't
from
go both
accounting is my
ways. Yeah.
source.
Yeah.
He came
And,
up
and
with
I don't
this.
know. I don't know. It just, infuriates me. I mean, I'm willing to accept that, the government has put like limitations on how information can be spread so that way it could keep its secrets. I have no problem with
Mhm.
that. And then just sweeping everything under that rug of, well, it's
Like,
compartmentalized XYZ.
show me one of those hijack live stream, filtered face, it looks like the marshmallow or whatever. Show me one of those, the mask, and it's legitimate things, and they're having to hijack and all this information and hack into this and hack into that. Show me those and I'll believe it. But when you're like, here's the red carpet for Joe who can now talk about XYZ, but don't mention ABC. Can't mention
Yeah.
that. Like I'm like, you can't force feed us that. I mean, this is not going to work. But if somebody could get like raw, I guess I don't want to say unedited, but find a way to do it. You know what I mean? I can't think of any other way to
Yeah.
explain it besides something that is not a show. Here's a script. Say this. Don't answer that. Then I mean, you might as well shove a popsicle stick up their ass because they're basically a puppet.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. It's just sort of like, everything, like I said, it's performative. It's heavily curated. And there's definitely a paywall, and even when stuff comes out, it's like it's nothing new. It's just regurgitated,
Yes.
and it's regurgitated lore. And because of that, I feel like the historical side of the paranormal practice does sort of like lose it, because we're seeing these same schoolyard magic tricks,
Mhm.
regurgitated again. in every field, whether it be paranormal or UFOs and stuff. It's just the same old bag of tricks. It's just it's got a new label this time, you know. I don't know. Anything on the? I guess we'll go ahead and start wrapping up. Anything on the more positive side that what what are you hopeful for in your continuing journey?
So, I mean, really, I've actually had somebody just ask me this the other day, and they're like, "Well, what do you want to do? Like, where do you?" I personally, like, my goal is to help form, or I guess not form. There's already kind of a community in place, but I want to kind of extend that community, either have like our own community or be a part of the greater community, and just give people the outlet. Like I tell people all the time, if anything weird, it does not have to be animals. It does not have to be an alien. It doesn't have to be a ghost. If anything weird has happened to you, I want to hear about it. And I always recommend people send it to my email and whatnot, because I like to hear these. And it's a good outlet because you never know what your story is going to do for somebody else. And I'm very, very, very big on that. I'm very open again, about my mental health issues and things that I have seen and things that I have gone through, because you really never know who you can help when you do that. So eventually, I would like to, again, grow the community, be a bigger part of it whenever I can have more resources to do so, investigate more things and kind of get the word out, but also be an advocate for people that are struggling. I mean, just because maybe, and like I said, I investigate, weird things happen. I have mental health issues. Just because you have mental health issues does not mean that everything that happens to you is bullshit. That's just not how it works. And I want people to understand that. I want people to feel comfortable in that and being able to contribute. Like, don't let it hold you back. I really want to encourage everyone who wants to try it. Just try it. What's the worst? Don't Ouija board. I will not ever encourage a Ouija board. No. Okay. Disclaimer. But aside from the Ouija board, just experiment. And it doesn't have to be anything. Literally, these cat balls are cat toys, and they are my favorite because the spirits here, we've used them enough that they know. They know that how to use them and when to get my attention, and they happen all the time. So I just like to tell people, don't be afraid to be weird. Okay? Don't be afraid to be weird. I spent up until like a couple years ago my entire life feeling so horrible about who I was because I could not physically, as hard as I tried, could not blend in. Couldn't do it. I would try and try and try and just failed every time. And everybody makes you feel belittled, right? If you're weird, you're not worth it. And you know what? To that I say, oh wait, there. I'll do edited version. I'm doing pretend flip offs. Um, but tell them to go a goat. So I want to encourage people to be themselves. Get the help that you need. If you have mental health issues, get the help that you need. Don't be afraid of it, but it doesn't discredit you. In my eyes, it should not discredit you in any form. So if we have more people out there like us or like me, then you can learn, right? So you can learn, you can educate, but you can still do these things and just be confident in yourself. Like that's my biggest thing is I wish that I had found the community that I am in now when I was a teenager, right? I mean, ever. Instead of being told that I'm virtually a witch and I'm going to burn in hell because things are happening to me that I did not ask for, right? So, all you people out there, just be you, man. I'm just telling you, just be you. As long as you're not hurting anybody, it's whatever, man. You do you, and everybody else can shove it. There's communities out there that you can be a part of and welcome everybody in. Okay, not everybody. Don't end up creeps. You know the rules. Don't do any of that. Oh, however, if you are going to experiment and you do want to do these things, make sure that just because you cannot see them does not mean that they don't need ground rules. Make sure that you are safe about it. Don't break and enter. Don't get arrested. I'm talking to you all little ghost hunters out there because I know everybody's at some point been somewhere they weren't supposed to be at a time they weren't supposed to be there. But make sure that you are protecting yourself. along with other things. Things will attach to you, things will affect you, you might go in totally fine and you come out and there's something that is just harping on you mentally. Be aware and take precautions when you do it. Just do it safe. Yeah. Sorry. Talk's over.
That's fun. I enjoy your show thoroughly, and I hope that there's more to come.
Oh
Whatever
yeah.
issues that you're dealing with at the moment, I hope that you're strong through them, and you come out the other end a better, bigger person. The One of the things is though, I gotta give you this sort of like life update. On our first appearance, we talked a lot about the furry stuff,
Hmm.
and I actually checked in. I checked it with Azure's Hilt, and she actually dressed up as a fox this year for Halloween. I want to
Oh,
make
that
sure you
is
didn't
so
miss that.
awesome. I was Little Red Riding Hood. I really
Nah.
wanted to be the big bad wolf, but my niece wanted to be the big bad wolf, and she nailed it. So I was Little Red Riding Hood. And
I
this
just
year, I
thought
think,
I
yeah,
just
because
thought
I
I'd
would
let
love to
you
see
know
her like
that.
that. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
perfect. I mean, I think it fits her very well too.
yeah.
And I think we've already got next year's costume picked out. It's going to be pretty badass. As long as we don't change it, we're going to be Vikings. And I'm getting like the fur, like I'm getting the whole nine. I'm going to have my hair braided. It's going to be dope.
That'll be fun. That'll be good to look forward to. I can't
It,
wait to see it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's going to be awesome. It has to do with my heritage, and I've always wanted to do it because it kind of hits home for me personally. And now that well, you can't tell because my hair's up in a bun, but I have some freakishly long hair that's going to be fantastic in some Viking braids.
Uh, that's excellent. So be sure to let people know where they can find you, either on podcast form or on YouTube if you have a channel, and just best place for people to reach out to you.
I am pretty much everywhere. I do have YouTube. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, X, Threads. Um, my website is currently needing updated, so I don't know if it's really working. So sorry, but you can send stories in to cryptids, creeps, and conspiracy at gmail.com if the website is not working. I'm going to be at CryptidCon this weekend, which this is probably not going to come out till later. But hey, if you're a CryptidCon, nice meeting you. Then let's see here. I am on everything from Spreaker, Pandora, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I mean, pretty much there was a list of like 30 something platforms that I was a part of that I wasn't even aware existed. I'm in, you should see my map. I am in all countries, almost. I'm in a large portion of countries. At least once somebody's listened to me there. But yeah, I mean, you can literally if you're in any of my social medias, another little perk, the Linktree link that's in the top of any of my social medias, when you click on that, it will give you everything. It'll give you the merch site. I have a Patreon feed, so it's on there. My videos and everything are on just that one. But you can actually click listen here and it'll open up a bunch of platforms and you can pick which one is yours instead of having to
All
like
right.
figure out all the links.
No problem. Then we'll have a link in the show notes. Thank you for joining us, Natasha. You've been
Thanks for having
fantastic.
me.